Divorcing your husband after he cheats isn't the answer. You may think it will just be a clean slate and you can start fresh. But have you ever heard the term emotional baggage? Do you really want to be the one with baggage in a new relationship? Of course not. But the problem is, when you leave a relationship after an emotional trauma like infidelity, you're going to bring that trauma and the triggers with you to your new relationship unless you figure out how to heal it first. This is what happened to my client Alyssa. Alyssa began working with me after she had decided to divorce. She had thought divorce was the answer to her problems, and that by removing herself from the situation, her problems would dissipate. But 4 years later, she found herself questioning her decision to get divorced in the first place. She wasn't happy. She had no self-confidence, and she still found herself seeking the love and validation from her now ex-husband. The triggers and distrust she thought she could run away from by divorcing kept poking their ugly heads when she tried to dabble in the world of dating. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Soraya Bastian, and I specialize in helping married women overcome their husband's infidelity and shed the emotional baggage for good, whether they decide to stay in their marriage or leave. Today, I want to share with you 3 possible scenarios of what life after infidelity could look like for you. Option 1, your emotional trauma can last decades. I don't know about you, but whenever I have a question I don't know the answer to, I ask Google. And after infidelity hits your marriage, you probably have a lot of questions. The problem with asking Google what to do is that at times it can be outdated. And not knowing any difference, how should you know? You've never experienced emotional trauma from infidelity before. But following along with what Google suggests seems like your only option. My client Jenny could not decide if she wanted to stay in her marriage or leave after her husband's infidelity. She would overthink every possible scenario and spent so much time trying to piece together the timeline with all the details she had been given. She ruminated, played detective, raged, and then she played the perfect wife, doing everything she could so that he would choose her. And she stayed in the same cycle for 27 years. She had tried everything Google suggested, and when it didn't work, she would repeat it and try to do it differently. From blog reading to hiring both traditional and Christian counselors to working with a transformational coach, she did it all, and she suffered this way for decades. What Google offers is the traditional route. 1, go to therapy. 2, read these books. 3, listen to this podcast. But the traditional route is outdated, and decades later, after all that work, your emotional trauma is ruling your life. Option 2, your emotional trauma becomes manageable after the first year. You know the saying, don't judge a book by its cover? I think that applies to my client Melissa. Melissa found out her husband was having an affair that spanned the length of most of her marriage. As you can imagine, she was completely distraught by the impact of this horrible news. But like most of us, she wasn't sure what to do. Her family life from the outside looked perfect. She had what others said they wished they did. A perfect marriage, perfect children, nice home and cars. It all looked too good to be true. And it was. Although Melissa wasn't void to all of the feelings that come along with this horrible truth, you wouldn't have known it bothered her in any way. She swallowed her pain and anger. She continued her daily duties explicitly, and she produced the fake smile and the right words when anybody would mention their envy for her life. Years later, Melissa wondered where she went. She no longer laughed or enjoyed the sunshine. She couldn't get close to her husband or her children for that matter. She was numb, disinterested, and the shell of the woman she used to be. While she carefully controlled her outside world, her inside world was shutting down. In this option, you feel as though you've mastered your trauma, but instead, it has learned to master you. Or option 3, your emotional trauma can be cleared within 90 days. It sounds absurd to think healing can happen so quickly, especially after all the work you've probably done to no avail. But I promise you, it's possible. Dr. Susan Ryak, medical director for DDM Ascend, says it requires about 10,000 repetitions, translating to a minimum of 3 months of practice to develop a new neural pathway and master a new pattern of behavior. Since October 2022, my client Kristen had been suffering with high levels of anxiety, anger, sadness, and ups and downs. She had done marriage and individual therapy and was seriously considering a marriage intensive. Kristen decided to join our Beyond Breath community the end of December 2022. And on a call in early February 2023, this is what she shared. I don't think I could ever go back to a therapist. The experience I feel like I am getting and I am seeing in myself is 1,000 times different from the 5 therapists I've seen throughout the course of my marriage. Every time I was there, I would just catch them up with everything that happened in the prior 2 weeks. I specialize in helping women do the work of releasing your emotional trauma, which is the how-to amongst the scramble of healing after infidelity. If you'd love to experience the same transformational healing for yourself and your marriage, and you don't want to waste years trying to figure it out on your own, I invite you to join my free masterclass where I walk you through the exact system to make this happen. Click the link below for instant access, and don't forget to subscribe for more trainings just like this one.